Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but it's mostly just the stuff we like. Although we do self-identify and somewhat brag about ourselves as idiots, we want to set the record straight that we are, in fact, idiots with some degree of culture. Granted, that culture might also be akin to mold. But in our best effort to prove this to you, people of the interwebs, we plunked ourselves down and read through three books. And we'll be bringing a world-renowned expert on the subject of those books with which to describe our literary findings. Of course, us being us and this show being this show, said books had to have something to do with geekery, so join us now for this episode 124, a little something we're calling Thrawn with a Wing, Part 2. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who is... I had so much spit, it was like St. Bernard levels again. It was like a mastiff here. I was just going to start drooling down my shirt. Anyways,
my gosh.
Take two. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who is able to identify weaknesses in his enemies solely by sifting through their trash. He has been my partner in idiocy for over 2 decades and could best be described as a tactical raccoon. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. How are you?
I am doing all right, aside from almost drowning myself during the intro.
I will say you can learn much about your enemies in their trash.
Yes. I now know everything about them. And
they like to run the Statue of Liberty.
They don't like to finish their scrambled eggs, but they are still quite delicious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm. So we are going to be talking about the second Thrawn trilogy, book trilogy by Timothy Zahn. And we'll be joined by none other than esteemed Star Wars expert,
guru,
addict, one might even say, Mr. Jimmy Dice of the Scruffy Looking Podcasters show. So we'll be welcoming him a little bit later. A full disclosure, this show is totally being Frankenstein together. We're recording this part of the show.
Do we want to open up that can of worms on how we ended up in this stage?
Why not? So we recorded the meat of the show because, of course, having a third person involved, there's additional scheduling issues. Not to mention my own COVID recovery. And then we all three logged in to find out that all three of us were hungover, which was even better. So when you listen to the middle of this show, just know those three individuals are hurting individuals. But anyways, so we are recording our beginning of the show, our Week in Geek, and the outro of the show on a completely different, actually a week to the day from when we recorded the main part of the show.
Indeed.
So there you have it, behind the scenes, a view behind the curtain. Not that anybody actually cares. But how are you doing, sir? You, as usual, had some culinary adventures.
Yes, I did. You know, we haven't done a health update recently, and I am running on all cylinders. I had some blood work done Friday, and cholesterol is in fine shape. Probably teetering toward the lower end of like almost my low that I was able to hit at one point. So doing very well, which means when I fill you in on what I had Friday night, you'll understand why I worked that in there.
And let me just tell you, folks, I got a picture of this, and it is debauchery on a like meat debauchery
on a massive scale.
Yeah.
It's the superstar destroyer of steaks.
I just imagine you after this meal, just laying back in your chair, shirt half open, belt buckle wide open, just
Oh my god! Actually, I wasn't actually.
That's exactly what I looked like.
No, but my wife and I went to our local restaurant that we
Your local
have
feeding trough. We know
the place that we've gotten to know the staff there, the owners. It's just kind of like our little home away from home when we go for a meal. And so they had a Valentine's Day menu running over the weekend, and so we wanted to kind of sample. They had some things on there that they didn't, they've never really had before, and so wanted to go and have those. And so for dinner, I had a nice appetizer of some deviled eggs, done BLT style, so they were very good.
You and your deviled eggs, man. I've never seen deviled eggs on any menu anywhere, and yet you find them everywhere. I don't get it.
Thankfully, it's a staple out here.
Apparently in Chicago, it's like deviled eggs. Why wouldn't you have them on the menu? New England? The hell are deviled eggs? It's the Puritans. That's the problem. It's the frickin' Puritans. They're like, you can't have a deviled eggs. It's sinful.
The word devil is in the name.
Cast out the demons.
Oh my gosh. Let's slip the dogs of war.
Satan, come out.
So then we get to my dinner, which
there's a tambourine and some snakes. Anyway, I'm sorry, we're going way off.
Yeah, you're really running with that devil thing.
I listened to some Van Halen earlier.
Oh, there you go. So we get to the main course, and they had a Wagyu tomahawk ribeye. Here's the funny part, which I don't know,
which is roughly the size of like an elephant ear.
Which I don't know if this came across in the picture.
Two people had to bring it out from the kitchen just by itself.
It's kind of like in the beginning of the Flintstones when they bring the ribeye out and drop it in the car, and the car like flips over.
Well, I was thinking more like Macho Man Randy Savage when he was the Macho King and he had the people carrying him out. That's what I was imagining.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know if this came through in the picture I sent you last night, but this entree is labeled for two.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
So I had a moment of moral conscience here of saying, do I really order this because of what this may? And our waiter, who we know very well, and he's a funny guy. I said, all right, now don't. I said the phrase "don't judge me" probably 3 or 4 times that evening. So.
And only two of them that he actually remembers. All right, so I had to go find my phone so I could look at this. Oh, dear sweet God, would you look at that?
Mm-hmm.
That looks like a family-style meal. Like, that looks like all the dishes that you would set down at the table and like a family of 4 would start making their portions out of. And that all sat down in front of you, and you're like, yes.
Absolutely. Let the meat flow through you.
Do it.
So you could choose out of 4 sauces. So I chose the hollandaise, is what I had on it. It was phenomenal. And then 3 sides, which of course I wasn't planning on eating them all. I just was going to, pick at them and mainly focus on the meat.
Literally like 5 pounds of potatoes. And I know because I make mashed potatoes quite a bit. That is not like 1 or 2 mashed potatoes. No. That is several large russet potatoes.
So, so the sides that were available that I picked out were a honey roasted carrots. Now, not in your picture, I did get the baby spinach saute, and then I think what I got was the roasted garlic mash. Now, I originally asked for mushroom. They had a sauteed mushroom blend, and they unfortunately gave me the garlic mash. So, but the thing is, with the spinach, it was phenomenal.
Most of the time when you go to a restaurant and they plop down the potatoes, it's almost, you can go to some restaurants and they do it with like the ice cream scoop, like back when you're in school and they used to plop it down on the tray. This looks like they had to use a snow shovel.
I was just grateful they cut it up for me. So
the guy's got like a weight belt to make sure that he doesn't like pull something when he's like.
So, sir, that was my that was my meal, and I will send you the. I did take a picture of the aftermath, where all that was left was the bone, because I did somehow finish the entire steak. It was very good, very good. And my wife had a little bit of the mashed potatoes, but I put away the potatoes and the spinach and brought the carrots home. So.
She only got the mashed potatoes because Tim got up to go have a pee. That's the only way she got to him. Otherwise, she didn't want to get into his kill zone. Good God.
So it was a very lovely evening. Had a couple of bourbons. Had some High West.
Had a couple of bourbons.
High West bourbon. So yeah, it was very nice.
Ah, well, that's lovely. So on Friday, I was out and about as well.
Very nice.
Which is a little bit unusual for. Actually, no, wait, it wasn't Friday. It was last night. My gosh, this is what happens.
Are you hungover again?
This is what happens when you get older, folks. But we went out to a joint in Portland, Maine, called Scales. In case anyone's wondering, and they're traveling to the Portland, Maine area. Lovely place. My wife's favorite place to go in Portland because it has valet parking. Because parking in Portland, Maine is a fracking nightmare. It is just, I love Portland. It can be such a fun town, lots of cool stuff going on. But when it comes to parking, strictly JV. Like, it is so just, the parking is stupid expensive and not available. So to have valet parking is really nice. So we went there with a couple friends, and you know, I had a cup of soup for an appetizer, and then I had I chose to have the burger, mostly because I really wasn't that hungry, and
for two?
No, it was just for one.
The double.
Jeez. And so I thought I was just going to have that because I'm like, okay, that's, because I was going to do it the man they call Tim style, no bun. So I had
Very
that.
Nice.
It was actually really good. They actually seasoned the burger, which is one of those.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know why people don't do this. Like, it is one of those things that now, like in my cooking, I so appreciate, like, actually seasoning things and having that taste and not being afraid of putting seasonings on food.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, on the other hand, went like just full throttle. She had because we were friends, so she wanted, you need to try this, oh, so we'll get this, and she she's just going, and I'm just looking at her, and she's like, what? I'm like, I'm just admiring your courage and determination right now. Like, you are fully committed, and I just want to see how this all shakes out.
Oh boy.
But so I did feel bad though, because I felt like I kind of whiskey splained a little bit. So well, here's the thing, and so we had gone to we got downtown early. We were trying to find a place to have a cocktail beforehand, and we went into a hotel. I won't say which hotel, that had a bar like across the street. Nothing sadder than a friggin' hotel bar on Saturday night. Just depressing.
Oh boy.
And I saw they had Angel's Envy, so I've never tried that before. Let me have an Angel's Envy neat. Got the bill. I'm like, well, that was a $20 single.
Oh yeah.
And it's like $45 a bottle. So I paid for half of a bottle for, like a pour that, like, they did it out of the little cup thing, the little measuring cup.
Yeah.
And then she gave me a little splash extra. I'm like, ooh, whoa.
But call me bougie. Jeez.
That was ridiculous. So then we go over to the restaurant, and I thought, okay, I'm just having one anyways, because I had one at the bar. I'm going to have one here. So I decided to spring. I got a Blanton's, which is a nice single barrel bourbon. That was only $1 more than the Angel's Envy.
That seems out of proportion.
Yeah, it does. So then my wife said, "Oh, I'll take a Blanton's on the rocks." I'm like, "No, yeah." It's like, no, you can't get a Blanton's on the rocks. I'm like, that's single barrel, like, premium bourbon, and it's a lot of money. I'm like, if you want to get something on the rocks, why don't you just get Knob Creek? So she got Knob Creek on the rock, and afterwards I was like, I'm not trying to like whiskey splain or gatekeep here, but you're not gonna get the actual taste out of it. I was like, you could try some of mine and see if you actually like it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so a very nice evening was had, and then finished up my meal with a strawberry frap.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. I didn't say what I had for. I actually did have.
Of course,
dessert,
you had dessert. My God. This just reminds me of like The Great Outdoors. You remember that movie where John Candy eats like the 96-ounce steak, and then he's like, "Hey, will you throw in a couple T-shirts for the kids if I get a couple desserts down them?" That's you. That's
Pretty
you.
much.
You're John Candy. I would totally be Dan Aykroyd in that. Like, yeah, feed him some more.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
what did you have for dessert?
It is called a chocolate silk tart. So it was a little, almost like a mini, like chocolate pie in a way, but it's a very smooth and wonderfully tasting chocolate pie. So
does your wife just bring a little red wagon just to pull you home in after these excursions?
No.
She just your legs and arms just dragging like.
I do have to share though that, you know, to bring this whole story around and get into the Week in Geek here, which I think you'll find humorous. We got the bill.
Oh boy. And
on that steak, it says market priced. So I'm like, okay, so this is probably going to be like 120, you know.
I usually don't see that on steak. It's usually like seafood that does that.
Exactly right. That's normally where I see it too, is on that. So I'm thinking like somewhere between 120 and 140.
Uh-huh.
2 bills.
Oh,
I was like, so you figure that and the bourbon, and it's just like, oh, good night.
Now wait a minute. The steak was. Wait a minute.
The steak dinner. The because it's for 2.
It was $200 for the steak dinner by itself.
Yes.
Oh, jeez. Oh. To hell with your heart. I think mine just skipped a couple beats. Jeez.
My eyes bugged out of my head a little bit, and I was like, holy moly. But
good thing you had a couple bourbons at that point, and the fact is you
softened the blow. So
you couldn't have gotten up to chase the manager down anyways.
No. So anyways, that was kind of the cap on the night. Was just like, wow, well, I guess I'm an expensive date of sorts.
Well, I already knew that. I'm a cheap date.
But all
right,
very good food, good times.
What do we have in the Week in Geek before we turn this into just more of us talking about food?
Food and our the ways that we go crazy.
Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
So what I did was I pulled together just 2 items, Star Wars focus, since we are talking Thrawn in this show.
Yes, indeed.
And one of them pertaining to this. But first one is, both of them are from ScreenRant.com. And basically the first one is talking about how the Mandalorian Season 3 is teasing a dark Imperial secret in the trailer. And really the gist of the article is talking about basically where is his name? I can't find his name. Could you just Gideon. There it is, Gideon. Sorry. Moff Gideon. Basically talking about
on that man's name.
Moff Gideon's tie to the Night of 1,000 Tears. So we're probably going to see how he will have a very direct hand in all of this. Article talks about how this is probably how he ended up with the Darksaber once the massacre. And so for those who aren't aware, the Night of 1,000 Tears, as was explained in season 2. Oh no, is that Book of Boba Fett or season 2? I forget.
No, it was season 2.
It was season 2. Is basically the Empire carried out this massacre on the home world Mandalore of the Mandalorians, and so many of them were purged, were killed, and there was a small group that escaped and went into exile. And so the article's talking about how that may come out with his, him having a direct tie to that event and what plays from that. But also, and this was the interesting thing, is that Mandalore may end up being a refuge for the remnants of the Empire. And that may be revealed in season 3. They're saying in the trailer, you saw, there was a little bit of a dogfight happening on what we believe was Mandalore between some TIE interceptors and I believe Bo-Katan's ship. And so basically saying like they're like, Gideon may be using Mandalore because it is decimated, because no one's probably living there, as this kind of home base for those remnants of the Empire. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I don't know if it's going to be a focal point of this season, because there's a lot of other things I know that they're going to be delving into, but it would be an interesting turn to have the Empire basically housing themselves on a planet that they themselves were directly responsible for decimating, and using that as almost like a base of operation while in hiding. So anyway, so I thought that was interesting. I like the tie-in of Gideon as well in this article, and the Darksaber piece. That they also get into Bo-Katan. Again, kind of keeping with the dark theme of what could come in season 3. Bo-Katan wanting to contest with the Mandalorian, fight him for the Darksaber to kind of cement her claim to power and to trying to lead, basically lead the remnant of the Mandalorians forward. So just an interesting article all around. Thought it was kind of a cool concept, and but I'm curious if they will really pursue that or not. One little detail before I turn it over to Uncle Todd to talk about this is they do acknowledge, of course, that Gideon is now in the incarcerated with the New Republic, and we did see the Mandalorian, or we thought we saw him on Coruscant, and so it could be that instead of putting him through a trial and sentencing him, that they're also kind of using him as information to kind of go pursue, other stranded elements of the Empire. So, and so we could see that maybe how he gets away, or how he kind of escapes, going through that process. So anyways, all that being said, sir, what are your thoughts?
Dang, I can't wait for this season to start. I am so excited.
Some good stuff, man. Some good stuff.
No, that is like such a great idea in terms of like where you would hide. Where are you going to hide? Well, hey, how about this planet that we absolutely glassed that nobody is going to really be doing a whole lot with? Sounds like a perfect place to hide. I think that the idea of Moff Gideon being, held by the New Republic, and then maybe it's the idea of Mando or Bo-Katan busting him out, and I love the amount of possibilities that are contained for this season. And even though, I mean, I see, I know there's a lot of folks who were not exactly thrilled with Book of Boba Fett. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett way more than I enjoyed Kenobi. Yeah. Not that I didn't enjoy the Kenobi show. I just liked Book of Boba Fett better. To me, it was a more enjoyable overall series. I mean, Kenobi had a couple of really iconic moments, but aside from that, it was just kind of there. Whereas to me, Book of Boba Fett actually had some things happening throughout that kind of even it out. But yeah, Mando is the one thing that I feel like, not that they haven't not messed up, because none of it's messed up. It's all great stuff to watch, and you're gonna like some stuff more than you like others. That's life. But Mando to me is still a compelling character, and the way that the gravity of that character that keeps all these other characters orbiting around him is just fascinating to me, and how all that's going to play out. So yeah, I can't fracking wait, man. This is gonna be great, absolutely great. Did you see the cover of, I think it was Empire magazine? They had a couple of covers with Bo-Katan and Mando.
Oh yeah, I think I saw those.
Oh my gosh.
As I was thumbing through Twitter the other night. So yeah,
so good.
Oh, it does.
So good.
It does. And oh, good.
And I mean, just on an aside, one of my acting binkies. It's just great to see Katie Sackhoff, kind of just living the dream of having this iconic character in live action. It's really cool. Nice. And you can tell, like, her Instagram is a quality follow in case anyone's looking for another person to follow on Instagram. But just like when she's posting some of this stuff, you can just see how like giddy she is, and almost like how much like, oh my gosh, I'm so playing with house money. Sort of vibe when she does these posts. It's great.
Yeah. And before we transition to the next thing, and I don't know if they're going to do it because I think there's, as we'll discuss later, most likely saving, Grand Admiral Thrawn's live debut for Ahsoka. But, one of the tie-ins to Thrawn is, him leading that Imperial remnant. So it is kind of interesting to see or understand if we'll see him, and like kind of connecting with them in that way, or like you'll hear from us in a little bit if it'll end up being a Ahsoka debut. So we will just, like you said, there's just a lot of possibilities and a lot of ways it could go. So it's but I do like the idea because we've like even in the first Thrawn trilogy, they're just kind of like the remnant is kind of like out in space somewhere, just kind of like floating around, and so the idea that they would kind of take a planet that might be abandoned or is abandoned and kind of use that as a way to kind of collect themselves is just kind of interesting. So something
Indeed.
We haven't seen before.
No, sir.
This next one's just kind of an interesting one. It feels like this is, something that someone wanted to just write about because I don't know that where this all came from. But on ScreenRant.com, the Star Wars fandom is being divided again because of Thrawn, and basically just talking about this debate between whether Thrawn is really a villain or not. It just feels like more of an essay on how this person feels about it. But basically, just talking about how when he was first introduced in the original trilogy, he very much came off as a villain, and then as time went on, and he was. Let me see here. Where was it? Yeah, so I think because I want to say you've seen Rebels. I'm watching Rebels right now. I'm not to the point of where Thrawn appears, but does he come across as a villain in that, or is he a little different?
He's a villain, but it's one of those bad guys who you respect because of how good they are at their job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you were going to take this into wrestling sports entertainment terms right now, Thrawn is kind of Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
I think Heyman might even be a better example because just he gets reaction.
Yeah.
And he's so good that fans can appreciate him while still disliking the character and like keeping it all sorted out because he's just that damn good at his job.
Yeah.
And with Thrawn, I think it's a similar thing. Even though he is the antagonist, he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, there is a level of respect because, of course, again, and I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 more times. But it's like one of the only competent Imperial leaders that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of nice to actually see like, oh, hey, here's someone who just doesn't poop their pants every single incident that happens.
Yeah.
Like you actually believe with a guy like this, like, okay, I can see how the Empire can take over the galaxy.
Right.
But you can still, you buy him as the bad guy, but there is this level of kind of like, wow, okay, cool. Yeah, that's, he's a cool bad guy in that he's really good at what he does.
Yeah.
So you appreciate that aspect of him being a worthy foe, I guess is maybe the word.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, like, and this is where I was getting kind of tripped up, where I think what they're, like, this article doesn't point directly at the sources when they make some of these statements, but it sounds like after the original trilogy, and I don't know if this goes to, and you'll hear later on, Jimmy Dice kind of bring up some of these intermediate books between the first Thrawn trilogy and then this trilogy we're reviewing now. But there were some kind of one-off books that were written, and I think that might be what they're referring to, is that he ends up coming off as a bit more complex than most Imperials. And what was interesting, and I do remember this group, so I don't know. I'll have to go back and see what book it is. I didn't, of course, do any research, which is par for the course for me.
Of course.
But I think in some of these books there was a group called the Yuzan Vong, and I don't know if that was from Rebels or if that was from the books, but later I think what this article kind of gets to is when we'll get into it when we talk about this trilogy, is there's a new there's kind of an extra as is stated in this article, an extra galactic invasion that is pending, and that is kind of the threat of the Grisks that we'll learn about in these books. So it sounds like Zahn kind of took that. So I'm not entirely sure like where the Yuuzhan Vong came from, and if it was in a video game, if it was in a just some of those intermediate books between the 90s and the 2010s, or what it was, but basically saying that Zahn has kind of taken a more nuanced approach with Thrawn, where some fans can see maybe he's not as vicious or as villainous as most Imperials are. However, as he was portrayed in Rebels, he came across very much like a villain. And so the idea is when he comes back in Ahsoka, he most likely will be in an antagonist, sort of position. Otherwise, it's not going to be very interesting. So,
oh yeah, totally.
So I think, but I think what I took from the article is just, I think Thrawn in a lot of ways, if we compare to like Marvel or like you said, with wrestling, like, Reigns and Heyman, is he's going to be a villain you're going to respect and look at differently than you've looked at other Imperial villains before, because of the way that he is portrayed, the way that he, conducts himself, and the way that he's just very cold and calculating and logic based, as opposed to, just anger and rage based, which is what we've seen a lot from like Vader and from, Palpatine to some degree. So
true.
So yeah. So overall, looking forward. I mean, again, just pointing to, more content upcoming this year with Ahsoka and the debut of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Indeed.
All right. And then lastly, before we wrap this segment up, we are T-minus 30 minutes from, or 45 minutes from kickoff here. We thought we would just throw in real quick some idiotic Super Bowl picks for the Kansas City Chiefs versus Philadelphia Eagles throwdown happening shortly. So, sir, what are your picks, thoughts, and how would you go with this one?
Well, so here's the deal. I mean, I've seen a couple of things on Twitter, Reddit, or wherever. I don't know. There's a couple of things. I mean, it seems like these two teams are so, like, by the numbers, evenly matched. I mean, they're both 16-3 when you factor in their playoff record. Mm-hmm. They both have, I think they're scoring, and like, it's just, it boils down to the point where they have, like, they've got brothers.
Yeah.
one brother on each team
facing off. There you go.
It's like, good God. What? How much more even can you make this? I gotta say, I'm kind of leaning towards the Eagles on this one.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I believe I have not followed the NFL closely for any amount of time. I've not watched either of these teams play this year. I guess this pretty much just breaks down to, I'd love to see Andy Reid get spanked by his old team, because the fact that Philadelphia had as much talent back during the Andy Reid days as they did, and they never were able to win a Super Bowl, to me is just crazy.
Yeah,
I don't understand how. I mean, I don't understand how you have McNabb and you have all the players that they had, and you come away empty-handed.
Yeah,
especially with the fact that I don't think the NFC was exactly chock-a-block full of titanic, teams that were all fighting for each other. I mean, the Eagles kind of had this period of time where they were really the class of that conference. And and man, Andy, I mean, hey, you know what? He got his Super Bowl last year. Good for him. Way too long, and if he actually understood clock management, he probably would have 2 or 3 of them. I think that this one's going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's going to be because in the second half, Andy Reid burns all his timeouts in like the third quarter, and can't stop the clock. And I just have a feeling it's going to come down to something like that, and the Eagles win. So that's my pick. Philadelphia Eagles. Fracking idea, dude. I didn't know we were going that deep into it.
I figured, why not? Just throw a number out.
We're going to go with 35. Eagles 35. Kansas City 30. We're going to make this a barn burner.
All right. Very nice. I, too, am going to go with the Eagles. Not exactly.
So I just want to congratulate Kansas City on their next Super Bowl right now.
Did we do this? Actually, last year it was San Fran and Cincinnati, I believe.
No, it was Cincinnati. It was Cincinnati and
San Fran.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wait,
no, two years ago was Kansas.
It wasn't San Fran. It wasn't San Fran. It was L.A. It was the Rams.
Was it? No, I thought it was. Here, let's look it up. Let's look it up.
We're a couple of experts right here.
Hold on, I'm checking it out.
Yeah, because it was the Rams, because Stafford was there. Wasn't it?
Actually, you are correct, sir. Okay, so...
Yeah, you was San Fran, because Jimmy G ain't got himself a ring.
Last year was Rams in Cincinnati. 2 years ago was Tampa Bay beating Kansas City. That was when Brady won. And then 3 years ago was when Kansas City won their first one against San Francisco. That's why I was confused, because I knew Kansas City won recently, and I thought, and of course Brady was in there somewhere. So, yes. So you are correct.
That's right. Oh my gosh, this is KC's third in 4 years appearance.
Oh, becoming as good as the Bills.
Oof. Dude, that Four Falls of Buffalo documentary.
Yeah,
that is a mofo. That is like a gut punch.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, I'm going to go Eagles as well, but I'm going to go 27-24. I think it's going to be a field goal separation between the two. But but just going with them, I mean, honestly, I'm not in with either of these teams too deeply in terms of, fandom or the players or anything like that. I think to your point, Kansas City's won most recently, so I try to go with the team that has, been out of it the longest. But of course, the last time the Eagles won was not that much longer ago. A little bit beyond that with beating New England. So, but that was a great game. That was a game that we lost, but at the same time, it was such a defensive game. It was not just defensive, but defense and offense, and it was just a great game. So I'm tipping my cap to the Eagles on this one. I think they've got a little bit more in the tank and more to give than the Chiefs. And so as you said, congratulations to Kansas City. You have been cursed by free-range idiocy. So
congratulations on your win before halftime even starts.
And that, my friends, is the Week in Geek.
Nice. So we're going to dive into our pre-recorded middle of the show here, but of course we couldn't manage to pull this off smoothly, which is why we're telling you right ahead that this is Frankenstein together, because we realized the man called Tim is the one who realized this Monday after we recorded on Sunday, like, hey, we really didn't get into a whole lot of background. We just went like straight in. And I was like, yeah, we did. So we're going to give a bit of background on these books in case you're wondering. And that way, when we dive into this discussion with Jimmy Dice, you might have a prayer of following us. Granted, again, 3 individuals with hangovers, so I don't know how many brain cells were actually functional during this conversation.
And a time boundary. We also were working within a time boundary as well. So there was a certain element of not being able to dive too deeply in certain areas, which
was good actually, because right now we're not under a time boundary, and look at the way we're flopping around right now. So we have 3 books. We have Thrawn, we have Thrawn Alliances, and then Thrawn Treason is the 3rd book.
Yes.
So the plot reading for Thrawn goes thusly. Found on an unnamed Outer Rim planet, the exiled Chiss warrior Thrawn pledges himself to Emperor Palpatine and joins the Imperial Navy. Thrawn's cunning and expertise as a tactician help him to rise through the ranks with an unprecedented speed, though his renegade tactics ignite the ire of his superiors. At Thrawn's side is his translator turned aide-de-camp, Ensign Eli Vanto, whom he trains in the ways of war. Meanwhile, ruthless administrator Arinda Price plots her own rise to power. Sounds about right?
Very nice.
Kind of covers everything.
I think so.
And so then Thrawn Alliances, the sequel to that book, focuses on Thrawn's partnership with Darth Vader, whom he meets at the conclusion of Thrawn. In the novel, Grand Admiral Thrawn and Darth Vader are sent on a mission to Batuu to explore a disturbance in the Force felt by Emperor Palpatine. The mission is more than that, however, as Thrawn split loyalties between the Empire and his native people, the Chiss, and Vader's past as a Jedi require a test of loyalty for both of the characters. The book also features flashbacks to a Clone Wars conflict featuring Thrawn and Anakin Skywalker on the same planet several years ago. Additionally, Padme Amidala is featured investigating the disappearance of an old ally. The novel also introduces the fictional species Grisk, which later return in Thrawn Treason. Ooh.
Interesting. And then Thrawn Treason reads thusly, a quote from Thrawn starts it off. If I were to serve the Empire, you would command my allegiance. Such was the promise Grand Admiral Thrawn made to Emperor Palpatine at their first meeting. Since then, Thrawn has been one of the Empire's most effective instruments, pursuing its enemies to the very edges of the known galaxy. But as keen a weapon as Thrawn has become, the Emperor dreams of something far more destructive. Now, as Thrawn's TIE Defender program is halted in favor of Director Krennic's secret Death Star project, he realizes that the balance of power in the Empire is measured by more than just military acumen or tactical efficiency. Even the greatest intellect can hardly compete with the power to annihilate entire planets. As Thrawn works to secure his place in the Imperial hierarchy, his former protege Eli Vanto returns with a dire warning about Thrawn's homeworld. Thrawn's mastery of strategy must guide him through an impossible choice: duty to the Chiss ascendancy or fealty to the Empire he has sworn to serve, even if the right choice means committing treason.
So there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the 3 books. And right now we dive into our discussion with Star Wars expert and friend of the show, Mr. Jimmy Dice.
Do it. This is going to be real interesting. I'm barely coherent right now.
Did you
all
say
right.
last night you'd be good to go tonight? Well, you said a lot of things last night, I suppose.
You know what? I was a different person last night. That's a very different time. But anyway, all right. So here we go. How the hell am I going to start this? I'll just start it because, well, let's face it, it's not going to sound good no matter how I do it right now. So, all right. So the main topic at hand for this episode is, of course, we're going to be talking about the second Thrawn trilogy.
Thrawn trilogy?
Thrawn trilogy. Yeah. Oh, boy.
I like that movie.
Yeah. It's,
fan of Tron too.
Yeah.
Big fan of Tron. Big Tron guy.
Oh, the second Tron was awesome. I was so disappointed we didn't get it. Apparently, they are making a third movie now. It apparently is going to line up in the next couple of years. Who knows who's actually going to be in it? Because I don't think anybody who was in this one wants to be in the next one. But anyway, we're not talking about Tron. We're talking about Thrawn, the second Tron. Thrawn. Oh my gosh!
Wow, this is fantastic.
What is going on? I know I shouldn't have had that drain cleaner before I started. But anyways, joining us for this discussion is one of the hosts of Scruffy Looking Podcasters, a Star Wars connoisseur and just a Star Wars savant, bar none. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jimmy Dice joining us for this discussion. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Hello there. It is my pleasure. Hello there. My pleasure to be joining you, boys.
And he's armed with a soundboard. Watch out.
And
with toys.
Oh, of course you did. And I'm not going to take that joke any further.
That's an amazing intro. Thank you very much. I wouldn't certainly call myself the foremost expert on really anything, but I do know a thing or two about Star Wars.
Well,
Absolutely.
It's like what they say in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Indeed.
You don't have to be that much smarter, just smarter than us.
That's right. That's right. And Jimmy, for our listeners, what has been your proclamation on the show? Is this the year of the blue? Is that what we're calling
this? This is the year of the blue.
Year of the blue.
This is the year of the Thrawn, because this year we're going to get live action Grand Admiral Thrawn on the screen, boys.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic.
And that's going to be coming with the Ahsoka live action series Q4 this year.
That's right.
23.
Oh my gosh. Rosario Dawson is Ahsoka.
Come on, really. I mean, we're getting Mando in March.
Yep.
We're getting a couple other things. Visions, the animated stuff. There's a whole slew of new animated studios that's going to be doing a whole no shorts on those, which will be great. We got Bad Batch going on right now. They just finished episode, 6.
Those have been good.
Those have been great.
Yeah, the Wookiee Jedi one.
Yeah, Gungi.
Oh yeah, by the way, spoilers. Sorry.
Thank you, Uncle Todd.
Grunge. I like to call him grungy. But,
nice.
Yeah, it's just been a lot of good Star Wars this year, and we're gonna get topped off by seeing our man in blue, Grand Admiral Thrawn, played by Lars Mikkelsen. He's lying. Yes. Don't believe him when he says he's not doing it. I just hope we get a little sneak peek of him at Celebration in London.
Nice.
Yeah,
which you're going out there for, are you not?
I am going out there. The Scruffy Boys will be meeting in the flesh in London. London's calling.
Oh boy!
Oh my gosh!
Is the universe buckled up for this? I don't know.
I don't know. It's gonna be a hard and fast trip, in and out. You know, the Hippodrome, the casino I was at last time I was there. It's strategically placed in the middle between our hotel and the Excel Center, so it's on the way.
Nice.
Are you still allowed in the UK? I wasn't aware how that all shook
After
out.
I walked out with all those Queen Elizabeth IIs on those banknotes, I don't know if they'd let me back in.
Oh my gosh. All right. So we're going to talk about these books because, well, I mean, we all reread them, except for, I'm going to say this right up front. Jimmy Dice, in all fairness, did not get to finish the trilogy because I had his third book, which he was nice enough to lend to me. And then I completely was a douche and didn't get it back to him.
I was hoping to reread that, but, you know.
Are you trying to like provide a challenge for him or something? Is that what you were doing? Or?
Kind of. I mean, he has a lovely hardcover edition of it and everything. I was like, oh, this is great.
Scratch that.
Yeah, you know.
This is my first time reading him, so it'll be it was very interesting. So
nice, very cool, very cool. So yeah, these came out I think in 2017.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember this because I got the first two books and got them signed by Timothy Zahn himself.
Nice.
Down at Star Wars Celebration Orlando.
Wow.
And that was very cool. I saw quite a few Thrawn cosplayers that year because that was the year he was coming back. Everybody was stoked. This is before Rebels had showed him in the animated series. And yeah, it's just Thrawn is our guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming to live action.
And Zahn actually lives a couple towns over from where I live in the suburbs here in Chicago. So
really?
He grew up in Lombard, and I believe he still resides there. I could be wrong though. But
still live in his mom's house or something?
Maybe. Possibly.
Hey, you gotta save money these days.
I wouldn't be surprised. He's a good guy though. Really nice guy. Super fun guy to meet if you ever get a chance to meet him.
Very cool. Very cool.
Nice. Well, man they call Tim has been doing the outline on this. He has labored over this for months, mostly because we have talked about doing this episode for months, and then who am I kidding? I postponed it at least twice, and now we are finally recording this. So, Tim, if you would, you're gonna lead us through this here, sir.
Yes, sir. So,
Sure.
Three books are Thrawn.
By the way, that's a regular part of our show now. Just so you know.
Sure.
You're a co-host even when you're not on the show.
Excellent. Love it.
The spirit of Jimmy Dice lives.
I don't feel like I'm getting it 100%, but I'm getting better.
Oh, you don't need to get it 100%. It's better if you don't get it. Grungier.
Your own flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So the books we're dealing with here are Thrawn, Thrawn Alliances, and Thrawn Treason. And before we dive into the first book, Thrawn, just a quick question to kind of discuss amongst ourselves here. Was Zahn, as I read through these, there was some context that I just didn't have. I haven't watched Rebels. I'm actually in the process of watching it right now because I wanted to kind of get that context.
Sweet.
And but going through, like, in the first book, Thrawn, which is somewhat of an origin story for him, we have characters like Arinda Price, we have locations like Lothal. Was just from your perspectives, was Zahn kind of basically bringing Thrawn in line with what happened in Rebels? Because it seems like for these three books, they seem to kind of orbit around that story and kind of lend credence to it and kind of keep it, canon almost, especially toward the end of the last one and, kind of where that goes. So, just before we get into it, just context for, Zahn writing them and just that idea of him, kind of tying it into Rebels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to, I don't know the man. I can't read what's inside of his head or where it was part of his contract with Disney when he was doing these, but the best scenario, the most likely scenario that I believe is the case is that Disney wanted to have a new bad guy. They wanted somebody somewhat familiar, but still generally unknown to the general populace, your general your general watcher of live action TV and stuff. And we only know Thrawn when he's wearing the white uniform, when he's a Grand Admiral. We know he's unstoppable, or at least, so to speak, we've all built him out to be this unstoppable, evil, invincible character. But the timeline, the way that the sequel trilogies came out, really narrows the band in which the Thrawn story arc can really live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without it directly impacting other stuff, and not having it be awkwardly weird when certain things that he does is just not mentioned. So
yeah.
I feel like he was not necessarily written into a box, but just saying that, hey, you have this window. We also want to incorporate him into Rebels. And this is how we all want to do this here. And actually, I take it back. I think he may have been in Rebels already by the time this came out in 2017. But anyways, my memory's all shot. I don't even remember stuff. Especially from last night. Jimmy Dice was at the table. Table was hot. 26 rolls. Anyways, that's just
gosh.
But I think Arinda Price, who voiced by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, she was also in Xena Warrior Princess.
Oh.
Really?
I got to meet her in person down in Orlando. She's the sweetest person you'll ever meet. She was what a ride to talk to.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you get into voice acting? She's like, oh, well, they wanted me to get a boob job for Xena Warrior Princess. And I said, nah, I'm going to stick to voice acting. And I'm like, good for you. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to change my body for this. And I was like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So she was a ride to completely by accident too. I meant to book just the autograph. I got the autograph and the photo. So I saw her twice in like an hour.
Oh,
she's
wow.
like, oh, you're back.
Nice.
And we made her do the Captain Morgan's knee drinking beer thing. That was great.
Very nice.
Maybe the fonts, I can't remember. But you get these new characters, Arinda Price, who are in Rebels that basically are allowing Thrawn, Zahn to write about. And the window for him is pretty narrow for him to fit in. But Thrawn, I keep saying Thrawn is Zahn. Zahn is rewarded, right, so to speak. A couple years later, just recently concludes the Chiss Ascendancy book series, which is even more of a backstory, origin story.
Okay.
That leads up to this trilogy that comes out in 2017. So there's a lot of back stuff going on here, and the way they wrote him out in Rebels, it's really setting up everything for Ahsoka. I think everything is really leading towards Ahsoka at the end of this year. Everything in Rebels, even the stuff in Bad Batch that's starting to get mentioned now. So it's a very exciting time. Did I not answer your question perfectly?
That was a fine answer, and actually segues very nicely into our questions because
sure.
So let's start with Thrawn, first book. Very much an origin story of for the Thrawn character, and interestingly enough, he's more of a protagonist in this than he is an antagonist from the prior trilogy, from Heir to the Empire, and as well as Arinda Price, which for me, I thought this was just kind of an interesting, way to approach the book where it isn't all just about him. There's an element of her in there, and really in a lot of ways, she kind of, to me, it was almost like the Michael Corleone story in a way. Starts out, somewhat pure and just it just falls into the worst impulses to be.
Yeah, it's a little bit more jaded, a little firm once you realize, like, oh yeah, these are how these people operate. I need to be sharp like this.
Yeah. So gents, we can go around the horn. What did you like? What could have been better? And then we can get to like surprises and some other details. So, Uncle Todd, you want to give us your thoughts?
Well, so I think it's interesting because each book to me was very easily identifiable and had a theme. And so the first book here Thrawn was already treading into Sherlock Holmes levels of deduction and info gathering and all that. This first book is straight up Sherlock Holmes because Zahn even gives him a Watson. Like Eli Vanto is his Watson, the guy who just is kind of there to be the audience in a way. for the book and for the character to kind of be able to bounce off of, and it actually does a great job of and it sounds weird to say this about an alien because they mention the fact that Thrawn is an alien approximately 1 billion times in this book just to make sure you understand that the dude with the blue skin is not human. Thanks. But they do a good job of using Eli to kind of humanize Thrawn a little bit.
Yeah.
So it provides a little bit of an entryway into who this person is, a little bit more than just this unstoppable force that we've seen.
Yeah.
And then just before I forget, so then like book 2 is your reluctant buddy movie sort of deal, almost like a Lethal Weapon. I mean, you would
just gonna say Glover and Gibson, right?
Yeah, I mean,
old for this, Rick.
I'm kind of surprised Anakin didn't say that. And then the third book, to me, it was a little tougher to define, but the character, I can't remember who it is, but what is it? The guy
the antagonist?
Krennic?
Well, no, Krennic's lackey that is like then shadowing Thrawn through the whole thing. Whatever that character's name is, was so over the top that it, to me, like it was like a Pink Panther-esque political farce in that third book. Mostly because of that guy, just like going it was so outlandish. I'm like, this is literally almost like I'm waiting for a Keystone Cops like slapstick sort of thing happen with this guy every turn of the page.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that each
His
book
name was Ronin.
Ronin. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I would tell you if I had the book.
Oh, see, there's the first one right there. What a great name for just a terrible character. But anyways, those were kind of the things. I mean, overall, the first book, it's more of the same. Like it gives you Thrawn. I thought it was very interesting that, the fact that, he kind of outwits those people right from the Empire, right from the beginning and all of that. And
I just like outdoorsman Thrawn. I think that's such a funny way to introduce
Grizzly Adams Thrawn
is just Thrawn as native,
Yeah.
It's like Ooga Booga.
That was
Survivor Thrawn.
Yeah.
It's the totally opposite of what
Thrawn. That's what
we've seen of him. It's so funny.
Yeah.
So can I just you mentioned the Survivor Thrawn. Can I just touch on that for one hot minute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there's a book. It was published by Del Rey back in what year is this? Whatever the hell it was. But it's called Star Wars Outbound Flight. And did you guys ever read that one? This is
isn't that part of like what they mentioned in the Heir to the Empire? Wasn't that what that Jedi was supposed to be part of that?
Yes.
I think it's something else.
Yes, Master Sabath.
Yeah.
Clone, crazy Jedi guy. So he's in this. His OG version is, anyways.
Okay.
But at the back of this book, I highly recommend it. Star Wars Outbound Flight. It's the non-canonical version of his origin story. And at the very back of it, it says also includes the bonus story Star Wars Mist Encounter. And what the Mist Encounter is, it's a real short story. It's just like a couple, just like a little thing in the back. It's only like 20, 30 pages. And it's about this smuggler ship who, they're evading these Hutt smugglers or something like that. And they warp out beyond wild space and into the unknown regions. And hello, there's Commander Thrawn. And that's Thrawn's first interaction with humans from the Republic.
Interesting.
And there's a whole tie-in with the Clone Wars, Republic, Emperor Palpatine, like all of that stuff. And then you see like, oh, this is how Thrawn gets kind of wrapped into it.
Yeah.
But the point of this one is, that's the story of Outbound Flight. The Mist Encounter is when Survivor Thrawn is on the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see how Captain Park comes and Thrawn. Sorry, I don't know what I'm smoking here, but Captain Park with the stormtroopers, Thrawn, he like takes the stormtrooper and stuffs him full of berries and something like that, and the guy like disintegrates, and that's how he sneaks onto the ship and so on. That story is pretty much identical to this one. For how they kept that story true from this, this Legends book, modified it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But Captain Park was there. The way he infiltrated onto the Star Destroyer is the same, and it basically ends when it's like, take me to your leader, Grand Admiral Thrawn kind of thing, and that's where it ends.
Oh,
but it's very cool for them, him being able to like rewrite that part. So that's something that people who are familiar with it are I guess happy to see anyways. Like, oh, they haven't like completely rewritten Thrawn in the way he acts and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Star Wars: The Mist Encounter. Pretty
interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Very cool.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack it too hard.
No, not at all. Jimmy, how about
this
you?
This entire show is a sidetrack.
Well, okay, certainly.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm very critical of this book. I think it could have been better. A lot better.
The first one?
My vibe is you made him too smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thrawn is just like, oh, but of course I'm going to do this because I am a genius and you're not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed that like every single scenario Thrawn was in, he was just like, yep, I got this. Yep, I got this. Yep, I got this.
Yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity between Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances where, because when Thrawn Alliances start, he's getting kind of reprimanded for a failure of, suppressing some rebel activity in Lothal.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's, and to your point, and I know Todd feels this way too. I think that takes away a dimension from him because you don't ever see him go through a loss or go through a struggle. It's all he's playing this game like 5 steps ahead of everyone else always. And I like that about his character, but as Todd and I have Todd and I have talked and as you mentioned that it does take a little bit of shine off of him because it's just like, well, if he knows everything, then how does anyone ever beat him? Or I don't mean to say know everything, but he always just seems to have everything, 5 steps ahead constantly.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, totally right.
He's a know-it-all. Big meaty. But no, you're absolutely right. And my thoughts exactly. Like you're too smart, dude. And I feel like Zahn goes a little bit too far in just explaining to the reader how smart he is. Like I'm gonna take the next page and a half to tell you how genius I am and how I figured this out.
Yeah.
And and cool to the uninitiated, you know what I mean? Like, okay, let it rip.
Yeah.
But for I guess to those who are very familiar with them or even not familiar with them, it just seems not tacky, but just a little like, okay. All right, we get it. Stop, enough bouquets at him.
Yeah. And now one thing I thought was interesting that they did, and I was curious what your thoughts were, and if you want to call this a struggle of Thrawn's, but to Todd's point about how they constantly mentioned, him as an alien over and over and over again. One thing I like that Zahn did in the first book, though, is bring out the prejudices, early in the book of humans against aliens, like which you don't ever really think about, hear about, or see in the television shows a whole lot. There's always that joke about, we don't serve their kind in here, but, like other than that, you don't really get a sense of it. So it was interesting early on when he's at the academy and what he and Eli go through, when they have that card game with these folks and then they get jumped and all of this. Yep. And once again, he parlays it into this like perfect move where like 5 years down the line, the guy's like this ace pilot and he, and he does something, great for that Thrawn saw in him. But,
right.
But yeah, just curious your guys' thoughts on that, because I thought it was just kind of it was an interesting angle that I don't ever really recall seeing in any sort of Star Wars material.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that adds a little texture and it also makes sense because if you look at the Rebel Alliance, you just look at the universe in general. There's plenty of aliens.
Yeah,
not really any for the Empire, like none really that I can think of.
They've tried to retcon that like a little bit in the Star Wars game. So this new Star Wars video game, newer rather, I think it came out in 2018. Star Wars Squadrons, the flight sim. That featured the Pantorans. I think Pantorans the name. If Matt Mole's listening to this, he'll correct me. But it's a blue-skinned race. They have these like white markings on their face. They're not Chiss, but they fight for the Empire rather, or at least they are enlisted by the Empire. So there was a lot more xenophobia, and I'll say gender. What's this term? My God, what's the word I'm looking for? Sexual discrimination towards female and female officers. Like don't even talk about having any kind of transgendered or like same-sex relationships or anything like that, which you did get in the some of the newer books by Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. But you don't there's a ton of xenophobia in that. And I like how they've like stepped back from it, because I feel like even though they are, big bad empire, you still need to have people from other planets and aliens and races to like help you just run this whole thing. You just can't shit on everybody,
Right.
Even though it's clear they kind of want to, it's more like we need you to as a means to our end, and then when the day is done, at the very end of the day, it's just us standing and no one else.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that was cool. I liked how they showcased a lot of his xenophobia that he had to deal with.
Yeah.
Pretty dope.
Yeah.
From a storytelling perspective, of course.
But of course he does it so well. He kind of rises above all of it. He always managed to sidestep like he did. Like the only L that Thrawn takes is not by Zahn's hand. It happens in Rebels, so it's completely out of his books.
Yeah,
and then it almost feels like like somewhere along the line, Zahn, that's stuck in his craw, and then he just turns the volume up more on just Thrawn's perfection.
Yeah,
because the one flaw that they keep mentioning is, oh, he doesn't know politics. Oh, he doesn't know politics. He's not a political creature. He doesn't understand politics. Oh, that's his one weakness is politics. When it turns out that really he's outmaneuvering them without getting involved in the politics.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah.
Or it doesn't even touch what he's doing. So it doesn't even really count as a weakness, because when does it ever hurt him? Never.
Yeah.
Well, you might say it hurt him in the third book, right? Because he's trying to track down the reason why these supply shipments aren't making it to Project Stardust, right? That was the deal he made with Krennic in the third book. We're jumping all over these books, by the way, which is cool. I like that.
Yeah.
For the listener. But ultimately he fails to stop like the Minox or whatever, crunching after all of the ships for all the supplies and everything else. He exposed this, nasty web of corruption and defrauding of the Empire. But it's like, no, you still don't get money for your Die Defender program. Sorry.
Yeah.
You didn't achieve the letter of this law, which seems like a very imperial thing for people to be a dick about.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't considered that. So yeah, it does come back. It does bite him.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel like it's that big of an. I don't know. I guess I just got really sick of yet again. He always has the right decision, and again, you get to that third book, and it's like he's so good that he's winning a battle. He goes at one point. He's winning a battle on his opponent's ship, and then he's winning a battle that he's not even in the same area of. They're just basically following his instructions and winning the battle. So he's not even present for the battle, and yet he's still winning the battle.
Yeah, he's not even directing it. It's like they followed my instructions precisely.
Yeah, it's like, come on, seriously, let the guy have some sort of a weakness besides oh well, you don't get your TIE Defender program. Mostly because hey, we've got to end the book at this certain point anyway. So it's even knowing that he's going to take an L. Zahn still goes out of his way to make him seem so strong,
Right.
Yeah.
In wrestling terms, he never lets him lose any heat. He never lets him he never looks bad. He never gets shown up. It's come on.
I think something. I think part of what was interesting, and we can get into this with alliances in a moment, but I think what is interesting, at least in the first book, is, a lot of times his primary opponent is in some ways the Empire. And when you put him up against the Empire like that, it actually makes sense that he wipes the floor with them, because as we saw it in Andor, because I thought it was a great aspect of Andor that they brought out was just the arrogance and the inability of the Empire to see past their own nose. And so when you have a master strategist like that, the whole Scrim Island, thing that they go through, where he just sits back and he lets this guy, he's like, all right, go ahead, go take your best shot at it. And he had a sense that something wasn't right. And, that commander gets his tail kicked and is embarrassed. And then he goes in and takes a more measured approach, which ends up it wasn't an easy battle, but it allowed them to get through and slowly kind of achieve their goal, which is kind of interesting. Like just to see him kind of almost like take advantage of the arrogance that just exists within that organization and structure.
Yeah, and you see he does it with like a level of like disdain, because it's his method was like, we would have saved more lives this way, lives and material. Ships.
I've just got to tell you, I am so enjoying your Thrawn. Just like it's like Hamlet. I'm so enjoying it.
Is that how the audiobook version sounds?
Oh yes.
Oh, very nice.
He talks like this always. That's why I listened to it at 1.5.
He actually slowed those parts down. So instead of listening to it 1.5, it was like 3/4 speed, just so he could just
I get it. It's I do love his voice though.
It does fit. It does fit.
Oh yeah.
One last thing on my side with Thrawn, with the first one, we'll move on to alliances, is with Arinda Price's storyline, which actually, if you take her storyline out, I think the book becomes a whole lot thinner because she brings such an element to it. But it was interesting to see how through her storyline, like the Empire, as we just talked about, creates these individuals and it's like they cannibalize their own in a way, right? I mean, she runs through that organization, and she's very ambitious. She's wanting to make a better
governor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Governor.
Absolutely. Starts off as this, working for her parents' business, basically on the planet she grew up on, and turns into this, power hungry governor. And I love the interaction between her and Tarkin. The back and forth they have, and the way that she ends up like turning on some of her friends, and oh my gosh, it was just such a really well done storyline, and I love how he wove it in. Thrawn and her just kind of weave in and out of each other's orbits, and so anyway, so I thought that was a real nice touch, and Thrawn's influence on that ascension of governor for her. And then, of course, the way it kind of ends, where she basically stages this whole thing, and basically tells a big lie, to kind of get out of it. And Thrawn suspects something's up, of course, because he knows all.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
that was his L. He was taking heat for at the beginning of Alliances when Arinda. What was it? She detonated the bomb or something like that.
Right.
To destroy the city that Thrawn wanted to take, and almost took without complete destruction or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so. I think that's a good point. Like, I think that's part of because I enjoy the first book more than the other two. It's probably my favorite book out of the trilogy. And I the more you talk about it, the more I realize like how enjoyable that character arc was. And yeah, I mean, the book is almost wafer thin when you take out that entire plot line. And it really kind of shows you like what Zahn can do with characters when he's like, hey, you know what? It's okay if I torture this character rather than Thrawn, where it's like, oh no, nothing can touch him.
Yeah, he's too big of a character to just like wield like a hammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas with somebody like Arinda Price, completely made up, there's no backstory on her. There's no canon that some sweaty nerd on a computer like myself is going to be like, wow, actually, she wasn't here during this time frame because in this book and this reference.
Yeah.
So there's that you have to worry about with her, which is you can see, as you said, Zahn's magic of just creating these wildly fun character arcs.
Yeah.
I will say I do feel like he starts wielding Thrawn like a hammer in the second and third book, because he doesn't have someone like Arinda Price. He's not going to mess with Anakin. Right. So I mean, he kind of does become much more of a blunt instrument. Like I think that's why I enjoyed the first one. I felt like the first book had a little bit more subtlety, a little bit more intrigue. A little bit more unknown, like because I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen with Arinda Price and how that was going to get to that end point,
Well, isn't that the best thing about origin stories, right? That's why origin stories are like the first parts are always my favorite. Lord of the Rings, for example. I think Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite one of all three, even though they're all amazing.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting with Arinda Prices, and we'll transition now into alliances. So when I start reading alliances, I'm getting a few chapters in and I'm like, where is she? I'm thinking about these 3 books the same way that I saw Heir to the Empire, and then Dark Forces Rising and Last Command.
Where's Eli? Where's Eli Vanto?
Where's Eli?
Where's his little man that he has with him? You know, his little friend.
Yes,
his Watson.
Where are you?
His caddy, essentially.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
give me the Billy Baru.
Yeah. Oh, Billy.
Come here, Eli. I need you to massage my bones.
Love it.
Massage my bunions. Yes.
So there was a little disorientation for me going.
Can you loofah my back?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm loofah my stretch marks.
Oh Jesus.
Good Lord.
Indeed.
Yeah, so there's a little disorientation going into it, but it is kind of interesting, the dynamic of it's funny you called it, Todd, like Lethal Weapon. I would almost say it's like Lethal Weapon and Lost, if you ever saw the show Lost, because there's all this time jumping around that happens.
And, that was getting on my nerves after a while.
And you have to kind of reset your context a little bit as you're reading it. So.
Yeah, the whole Anakin Padme thing, then going back to Thrawn and Vader. Like, I liked it. It was cool.
Yeah.
Some parts of it felt a little rushed. Some parts of it fell a little flat for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Padme's story arc, I liked it. I wish she had a little bit more depth to it, and I wish Anakin wasn't just like this just grumpy kid the whole time.
Yeah. Like,
bitch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One thing I struggled with a little bit, and I don't know if you guys experienced this too, in this book and then in Treason, I have to go back and reread some of parts of the chapters, especially when there's a lot of action going on. I don't know that Zahn's strength is laying out the sequence of a battle, because it gets so like I'm trying to build a mental picture in my head as I'm reading it, and I honestly just get lost. There's just so much going on, and
he is not good with geography.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you guys experienced that too, both like in the bar fight, and then kind of the fight they had as they were chasing. I don't know. I think they were chasing someone to find their ship or something like that after the bar fight. And anyways, it was just very confusing at times, so I don't know if that ever struck you both.
Yeah, it was a little challenging. It's just one of those things you just get used to as you're reading it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is one of those deals where when you're dealing with an author, almost like you're dealing with a director, who's directing a fight scene, you get a feeling of when you're in good hands. Yeah. And when someone does it really well, it's appreciated, maybe not overtly or consciously, but you can kind of, you feel, at least I do, I feel a little more at ease, like, okay, I kind of know where everything is. Mm. And when someone's not good at it, it's much harder for me to go. I can tell because I'm getting tired of stuff. Like, my gosh, because Zahn's trying, man. I will give him that. He tries, and he tries to lay it out, but it's the way he does it. I'm like, you're not helping. You're just not. I appreciate the effort, but you're not really doing it for me, sir.
Right.
If it helps, I know that in the Chiss Ascendancy trilogy, the more recent one, I think they do a better job at describing the space combat.
Oh, okay.
In a way that it makes it more feel like, okay, this is like an episode of The Expanse now. You guys Expanse fans?
No,
I haven't seen it.
Probably gotta check it out.
Highly recommend it.
All right.
Love it. You will love it. Excellent series.
I think it's tough too, because I feel like, Star Wars is at least to me, it feels very two-dimensional space, space fights, as opposed to three-dimensional, like when watching like Battlestar Galactica and stuff, and you see things happening on different planes, and as opposed to like everything's just happening in this one plane, which is kind of old school, which, I mean, that's fine. But I think that's part of the reason is I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just do something different? Like, why wouldn't you come at him from this angle?
I think he tried to do that in Treason, because you do have toward the end, like part of his strategery is to, place one of those cloaking drop you out of hyperspace things. And so you have the TIE defenders and the TIE fighters popping in from like different angles, like they can't predict where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And so, it was just interesting to kind of like, I think that was the first time, but when that layered in, it made it even, but for me at least, it was just like, I don't know what the heck's going on. Once I reread it, another time, like, okay, I got it. But
yeah,
it's just, as you're trying to build the mental model, it's just, it's a bit hard.
It's a challenge to follow. I mean, it's a lot of times you have to reread a few sections a couple of times. Like, all right, what is he doing? Which characters are here? I fell asleep, and where am I?
Yes.
Well, especially when he goes into like 5 pages of detailing like how he's trying to figure out where that, where the light speed disruptor or whatever the thing is, where they're trying. Oh, he comes out from this direction, and it's describing going into all these things, and I'm like, can we just get to the point? Yeah. I don't care that much about like astrophysics at this point. Like, I'm just here for the story. I'm not here for a dissertation on, this is how you would find a cloaked device that would take you out of light speed, sort of thing.
Yeah. Although it is a kind of a cool concept.
Oh, so, I thought it was a
gravity well projector. That's what it was.
Yeah, I thought it was a great idea, but it was just like, I don't need that much background.
The thing is, like, it was already kind of brought up before. I mean, this the interdictor technology they have in the interdictor cruisers.
Right.
The smaller ships in the Imperial fleet that they use to like pull people out of hyperspace, and that's actually a really common thing in the, I'll say, pre-Disney canon. As most people who are into Star Wars knew like about these gravity wells and interdictors and stuff. But Thrawn was the guy who kind of but brought that technology into the Empire.
Yeah.
And Zahn is just making sure that is heard and seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a great concept. I just wish it hadn't been like, oh, let me just show you how clever I am and how clever Thrawn is.
Yeah.
We could have gotten there. Well, like, half as long, twice as strong would have sufficed in some of these areas. But again,
so the way I was reading Alliances, and tell me if you guys agree or not. So in these two timelines, it feels like in the past timeline where it's Anakin and Thrawn, you have Anakin struggling with carrying out the mission and the loyalty, that he has for Padme and protecting her and making sure she's safe.
Yep.
And then in the present day, you have, and I found this interesting, with Vader and Thrawn, it's really Thrawn who's now, I don't want to say struggling with loyalty, but it's he's dealing with his loyalty to the Chiss and what's happening with the Grisk and now these Force sensitives that they're using, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept, that you have Force sensitive like navigators basically. So
Skywalkers,
the Skywalkers, yes. But yeah, your thoughts on that? Like, was that your read on it? And did you kind of have the same sense of things? Because it seemed like loyalty was kind of the thing that played out in the two threads. It was just interesting how they inverted it between the two characters.
Yeah, with Thrawn, it's a matter of his objective ultimately is the safety and protection of the Chiss ascendancy, like that. I think, and that's like to his core. That's just, this is what he's going to do. There's nothing in between of this, and him towing the line for the Empire and like keeping things on like the straight and narrow and making sure he doesn't deviate from that is tricky. He seems to be having a good grasp on it when everyone else thinks that he's like, well, he's going to betray us eventually because he's going to go back to his own people.
Yeah.
But he still keeps to avoiding it and stuff while, holding true to his own like principles and ideals and defending the Chiss and the Empire at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. Did you feel like there wasn't enough info on, and this could just be me because I'm coming to this, I think, a little bit colder than you guys are. I felt like I didn't get enough information about the Chiss ascendancy, any kind of background on his culture or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't get enough of it to actually care that much. Like, it was just so peripherally mentioned, and it was such just like a thin layer of character, whitewash or blue wash, I guess you would say. That like I couldn't get invested in it. Like, yeah, he might go back to his people, but I don't know jack squat about his people or who they are, what they are. Like, you don't have to give me the entire thing, but I felt like I got shortchanged on that. Now, is that just my lack of background knowledge? Or did you guys feel any of that too?
The Chiss are always mysterious, right? It took forever in the old Legends canon to even visit their home world, in the books anyways. The Chiss Ascendancy trilogy, which I think we should have this discussion on those in the somewhere near future.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that'd be absolutely outstanding. You get that 100%.
All right.
You get every interweaving political, military, their own xenophobic views of the ascendancy. You know what I mean? Like, we believe in us and don't really care about anybody else.
Yeah. No, and it's a good point that you raised, Todd, because I like the way I viewed it is just it I didn't need to know the detail. I just knew that there was something of value there for him, and that was the thing he was anchored to. And so what, even when you look at the end of Treason, when Palpatine says, we're going to have a conversation when you come back from Lothal. And then, of course, we all know he doesn't come back from Lothal. So, so that conversation was postponed for another date, apparently. But just the fact that it's an anchor for him. And that's what I found interesting in this book is, like, it's not like, Anakin's love for Padme is the same thing that, like, Thrawn has for his people, but there was definitely a sense of urgency and care he was showing for these girls, and the fact that, like, we never really had seen this out of the character, and that sort of thing. And so not knowing a lot about it was, for me, it wasn't important, but I see what you're saying in the value of it. It's like, it would help me understand him as a character better to know why is he so anchored to it? What is it about his culture that, his people and his society where, he really does. I mean, by the end of the third book, he is really stated, I think he states it. He's like, no, my loyalty is to the Chiss. And, this is the Empire is a tool I'm using right now, basically.
Yeah. I will say, like, the Skywalkers and the rescue of the Force sensitive girls, because they are the navigators, right? Of all the Chiss ships through hyperspace. Because what we get the vibe of is in the unknown regions, it's very there's a lot of impassable areas, right? Like nebulae, cosmic gases, gamma ray clouds or whatever. You just can't go in a straight line like you can the Galactic Empire and the bigger part of the galaxy. So they need the Force sensitive people, and we see that with Vader doing that near the beginning of Alliances, where he's guiding Star Destroyer through. That's also a throwback to Heir to the Empire trilogy with the crazy Jedi Master Sabaoth.
That's right. Yep.
Sabaoth, whatever his name is. Sabaoth. Because he would use him to use sort of, they call it a battle meditation.
Yep.
It's also
where he was coordinating activities and things like that.
Just not directly influencing people, but just like, very nuanced things, Yeah. That's also a battle meditation. They talk about that in Knights of the Old Republic video game too.
So speaking of, like, kind of ties back to the Heir to the Empire, do you think that especially with the cloak gravity well projectors here and what the Grisk were trying to do with it, do you guys kind of think that, like, I feel like Zahn was using that to kind of tie back to Heir to the Empire, or at least or is it Last Command, where Thrawn sets up all of the cloaked like asteroids around Coruscant, so they don't know kind of how to get in and out of the planet, basically. They're all
brilliantly cool idea. Yeah, and always loved it.
It just seems like this might be the birthplace of some of those ideas, when he tangles with them and that sort of thing. So
very, very well could be, and we may see that in the. So we'll see what we see in the Ahsoka series.
That's right.
Is Thrawn going to become a bigger, badder character that he's going to, merit his own sort of series spinoff that occurs between the events of Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian, and the sequel trilogy? God, I hope so.
That would be excellent.
Who knows? Zahn only has a certain window that Thrawn really can operate in.
Yeah,
which is why I'll say again for the Chiss Ascendancy trilogy of books, he gets just his entire palette is open. He can write about wherever the hell he wants, and he does, and it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Just another tie back. Rook is in this book. And only this book for some reason. I don't know why he isn't in treason, but Zahn goes out of his way to establish him. Like here he is.
Yeah, There's just times when he's just sort of like, all right, and you just go away.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with you for this book, so
he's just the ninja.
Yeah,
appears as if from nowhere. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, and then another tie back to Heir to the Empire. This time, I think it's Dark Forces Rising. Is Anakin at the end, when he basically renders that planet or removes a major, kind of resource from that planet that everyone kind of, as a mining planet, they need this. And in his haste, blows it all up. And causes basically this I thought it was an interesting thing by Zahn to kind of show this as Anakin doing it. And then later when we're dealing with the Nogri, Vader very purposefully in the Empire very purposefully ruins another planet, to basically control a race.
Yeah.
So I kind of took out of this, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is where Anakin got the idea from, because, when you look at what he did, I mean, it really brought that group kind of to its knees, and then they come back later and they're just, that outpost is still there, but it just seems like it's a very different place now.
Yeah, they're all wicked pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
What y'all think about the Grisk? I thought it was a really interesting way to present an enemy who somehow managed to like instill that kind of fear.
Yeah.
In people to do their bidding, that the fact that they didn't have to necessarily do all this directly, that they had this like series of pass-throughs almost, doing all their bidding. I thought that was kind of interesting.
They are very secretive antagonists, right? We don't really get to know or hear a lot about them, and that is consistent throughout all of the rest of the stuff that's been written, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
I like that because it gives some mystique to it. You know what I mean? You're not just taking all your clothes off at once. You just kind of do a little bit of a time, building up a mood, and which I'm hoping we get.
My wife asked me to do it the other direction. She's like, put on the sock, put on another
shit
sock.
back on. I don't want to see that anymore. That's awful. It burns my eyes.
Just, you know what? Put on 2 shirts.
I know it's your birthday, but Jesus Christ.
There's limits.
I can't do this.
Oh gosh.
Anyway,
once again, sharing way too much with the world.
Yeah, but it's good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're great in terms of that whole sequence where they kind of break out of being in prison because apparently they burrow out their teeth or something, and they have weapons. And I mean, it's great to make like this nomadic sort of race that just dominates. And in some ways, I don't want to say they're like the Borg, but they have elements of the Borg in them, right? I mean, they dominate another group and they bend them to their will, and then they use them to basically continue kind of dominance elsewhere. And so I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was funny to me because I do appreciate the fact that they're mysterious. I think that works as far as an antagonist. But it's kind of funny because I don't buy that in with the Chiss, because I feel like I don't spend as much time with the Grisk.
Yeah.
I've already spent like now how many books hearing about the Chiss. It's like I just need a bit more of that.
Yeah.
Like I need a little less mystery there to buy in on that, because that has to do with the main character that you're asking me to invest all this time in.
Yeah.
Whereas the antagonist, like, okay, fine, yeah, they can be a little more mysterious. You have to fill in all those blanks. It's scarier when you don't.
Yeah.
But it's funny that he kind of tried to treat them both the same way. I'm like, dude, you got to you got to give me a little more on one side,
Right. So jumping over to anything else on alliances?
No, I'm good.
So jumping over to treason, last book. This one was interesting to me because, a lot of different tie-ins now. We have Krennic, we have We have Project Stardust. We just a lot of weaving in kind of the existing lore and really into the Thrawn kind of narrative now. What were your thoughts on this? I mean, I thought this was kind of an interesting story that, coming out of it, I kind of thought would make a great movie, because it's in some ways kind of like Last Jedi, where there's this like constant like pursuit going on where Thrawn's trying to figure this thing out. But at the same time, there's all this, intrigue and, subterfuge going on within the Empire once again, cannibalizing their own. But yeah, what were you guys' thoughts on just kind of the overall like arc of him, really trying to figure out a supply line issue, and it turns into a way bigger thing?
Go ahead. I'll just briefly say I just kind of didn't like this book. I felt like it just kind of it is.
Yeah, my favorite part about this book was we got to see our man Eli Vanto again.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. I was hoping that that character wouldn't get completely dropped. I was like, he got to come back in the third book, right?
I know, right. I mean, there's I love his arc, and I love seeing the Chiss side of that, right? Again, yes. I love all story arcs that involve like their race and everything. It works out really well. It's very well written, and thankfully we get more of that in the Chiss.
And him kind of figuring out his purpose.
Yeah, it's like, what am I doing here? He told me to help, and I'm not helping. I'm looking at I don't know, scrubbing toilets essentially.
Yes. Yeah, between him and who is his shoot? I'm trying to find her name.
His
Admiral Alani.
I think Faro. I think was the commander.
Faro, Commodore Faro was Thrawn's.
Yes. So between her and Vanto, I kind of felt like they both had moments of wanting to go to him and be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, I was like, "What are you
doing to me here?"
Yeah.
I was like, bro, come on, man.
I know everything.
The funny thing is, I realized now reading another trilogy by Zahn, Zahn has a very specific way of kind of going through these trilogies. Like the books get shorter as you go along. And then and this happened in the Heir to the Empire trilogy as well. Like you get to that third book and it feels like about 2/3 of the way, Zahn suddenly has realized like an eighth grader the night before the term papers due, like, oh crap, I got to tie this thing. Yeah, I got to tie this up. But instead of, I don't want to go back and anything. So we're just going to all right, now and this and this and this and this, and then it kind of gains speed. You lose all the detail, and then it just sort of ends.
Yeah,
and it just feels like it kind of just comes out of nowhere. And okay, but I will say he ties up all of the loose ends, but it just seems like so damn neat.
Well,
in the way that it all ties up.
There's two major battles in both of those last books that are going on simultaneously.
Yeah. Because I mean, he kind of realized oh crap, I got this and this, and you get again, it just kind of all goes, and then at the very end, you have this dude who's been ranting and raving, this Ronin dude who's who is so out of emotional balance. He makes Hux look like Spock.
Yeah, for real.
Well said.
My gosh, I can't even imagine how much spittle would have to be cleaned up after Ronan has finished one of his little tirades or tantrums. But at the end, Thrawn's just like, "Oh, you'll be going with the Chiss," and he just kind of does.
Well,
why?
Because he boxed him into a corner.
But even so, which
I thought was kind of cool. But
it was kind of cool, but at the same time, it just felt like all right. No, you just spent an entire book raging against everything. Mm-hmm. You're doing everything but bitching about the coffee machine. And now all of a sudden you're just going to go, oh, well. That's just what it felt to me. It felt very okay, well, he's just going to go.
Be done with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. That just kind of didn't sit well with me. The third book was definitely my least favorite. I gotta be honest.
That whole thing with Ronan made me laugh because it's it's presenting a choice that really wasn't a choice. It's like, you disdain this so much, you're about to go to someone who's going to know how much you disdain it, or you can go over here, but it's your choice.
Yeah, but it also felt like how
Vader will kill you. So
But it felt like how Anakin always went along with Thrawn's ideas in the second book, and there really wasn't any and you know, Anakin's just like, okay,
a grumbly teenager.
Yeah, like anyways.
Yeah.
No, you're right, and it makes sense. We have a grumbly Luke Skywalker, but
yeah. I like putting Krennic against Thrawn and having them kind of, you know, in competition in a way, and just
yeah. Oh, Krennic just being absolutely outclassed.
Krennic being Krennic,
right? He's you know, king of his little ant farm, and you know, he is God in his own mind.
Yes, yes, that was definitely well done. We see Captain Pelion makes an appearance.
Yeah, he gets a word or two mentioned. Yeah,
yes,
love that.
Good to see him.
He's also mentioned in the Rebels show.
Ah, okay.
In the series, I'll say the series finale.
Right.
Just mentioned. Just Thrawn goes, "Get me Captain Pelion," and then you know,
space whales.
You never see that happen. Yeah, space whales. I was so upset about that.
That is one of those things. Like you just see Thrawn like built up, and then a teenager takes him out. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't care if he is a Jedi. Like, what?
Which is kind of in line in a way with what happened in Last Command, right? I mean, the thing that took him out was the thing you didn't see coming, you know, and you know, it's kind of interesting. They in a way took that theme, even though it wasn't leading to his death, just a long sabbatical in the unknown regions. Yeah, we talked about the TIE Defender project. I thought that was great bringing that out. I mean, I forget if we talked about this in pre-production or if this was in the show, but the the old TIE Fighter game from the mid 90s. Jim, you and I are students, players of that game. It was well done, and it was great to see that woven in, and quite honestly, it was great to read, you know, kind of a battle where it was being employed. And I think in Alliances, actually, toward the end, didn't Vader fly one? I think, now that I'm thinking about it.
He did. And at the very end, he's like, "Most impressive. I speak to the Emperor on behalf of this project." That happens.
You need to do an audio, just voice an audio book with all these characters.
I am an audiobook. Anyways.
I wasn't going to say nothing.
But yeah, you definitely get that. And when you also had that in the TIE Fighter game, you have Vader flying a TIE Defender around.
Yeah,
so that's another cool thing. You find out like the TIE Defender was invented by Zahn.
Yeah. Yep.
That was cool. Or at least it was predominantly used by him in first in TIE Fighter. And then just everywhere else. The Star Wars collectible card game had it.
And I started getting into the X-Wing tabletop dogfighting game with my sons.
No way.
Yes.
Dude, I love that game.
You and Ed play that? I thought I remember hearing you guys talk about it, but I don't remember.
We do. We do whenever we remember to.
Okay.
It's just, you know, being far away, separate. Both of us have very busy families.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened and all that stuff. But we've been talking about trying to get a night going again.
Nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely love it. I collect the Rebel Alliance and the Empire.
Yep.
And by default, the Resistance and the First Order. I tend to stay away from scum.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently got a set where it has Vader actually flying the TIE Defender. You know, he's one of the pilots for the TIE Defender, and then
one of the cards. That's right.
Volt Scarus, who's another name that comes up in Alliances and Treason. He's another pilot from that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they start pulling in a lot of Rebels characters.
They do.
I mean, once you realize, like, Zahn created Ahsoka, Zahn created Rebels. Excuse me, not Zahn. Filoni, Dave Filoni, right? Dave Filoni created Rebels. He created Ahsoka. Dave Filoni has created all the characters from Rebels that Thrawn was interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a matter of time where this is, and you know, I think Ahsoka is really going to be the explosion, hopefully, if you will, of us getting a whole lot of cool Thrawn,
the inflection point
material. Yeah, the inflection point. I hope so, because I mean, the sequel trilogies, it's all done, and Daisy Ridley and John Boyega doesn't seem like they're going to be rehired anytime soon for more Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which is a damn shame. You know, because we're waiting for Rian Johnson to write his trilogy, but it's just it's a very interesting time right now where live action streaming is the way.
Yeah.
And not big box theater, which I feel like Star Wars does the best at, right? Star Wars is a movie theater show.
Yeah. I am curious to see when he does debut in Ahsoka and where they go from there, where he's not a force sensitive, where he's more of a strategic, kind of military kind of person, how that plays with the overall audience as the main, antagonist to maybe not just Ahsoka, maybe it becomes Mando, maybe it becomes, a few other offshoots, but if they start to build something around him, I think he's a great antagonist to build around, at least for a period.
As well. He could be the next baddie, because the Emperor is gone, Snoke is gone.
And it's a whole different feel now because
the Emperor's gone, Snoke is gone, the Emperor's gone again.
And the Emperor will be gone, coming back, and then gone again, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you can't get enough Palpatine.
Can't get enough Papa Palps.
Jeez.
All right. And any other thoughts on treason? Because I think from our discussion, I think we've all very much enjoyed the first book. I think the second book kind of worked for us a little bit. I think that I enjoyed the third book. I mean, I don't know that I would say it more so than the first one, but I thought it rounded out, the overall narrative pretty well and kind of, and I really like the ending, especially now understanding, kind of where Rebels takes things. That that conversation between him and Palpatine, and you're kind of left wondering what's going to happen. And now he ends up disappearing for a period of time, and Palpatine, he goes down the shaft. So, oh well.
Pretty much. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I had some, I was picking nits as the guys on Stuff You Should Know say, but I overall, I'm not going to poo-poo on Timothy Zahn and him producing this amazing content for a beloved evil character that we all really enjoy reading about. We're going to be critical, sure, but ultimately, did I not like the book because of these small little shortfalls? I thought no. It was absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and it just makes me want to just take and want
everything.
There it is.
Stellan Skarsgård from Andor, best line in the whole series. Right there.
They should have just give that man an Emmy just on that speech. Right there.
Right?
That whole show is just ridiculous. Oh my god.
Monologue. Oh my god, his monologue was just
yeah, chef's kiss.
Absolutely.
Chef's kiss.
That's right.
And Ship, phenomenal.
The ship is great. I loved all of that. Loved it.
I just loved finally seeing a tractor beam piece of hardware just get waylaid by something. It was just phenomenal.
It wasn't lasers that would be deflected off their deflectors, right? It was just a physical object.
It was just throw a bunch of sharp metal objects and watch what happens.
Yeah.
And I love the sound. It's like ting 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 ting. Just takes
because it's not energy. It's literally super sharp. I'm just gonna rip your shit apart kind of thing.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I loved it.
Phenomenal. Well, all right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've adjudicated these three books as much as we can. And once again, Thrawn comes out a winner, although Uncle Todd has some issues, I believe, with his
I just would like to see
all-knowing ways, if you will.
He always comes out a winner.
Who likes a know-it-all? That's all I ask. Who likes a know-it-all? Nobody. Well, Jimmy, thank you very much for this.
You're the blue. Hey, Todd, my pleasure.
With that.
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys, especially about that good old Star Wars.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
And another thing.
All right, sir. What have you got for and another thing for this episode?
My and another thing is actually from last Saturday evening. It's the Saturday Night Live episode that was hosted by Pedro Pascal. So this would be the February 4th episode. Calling this one out mainly because, to be perfectly honest, every sketch he's in, or just the show overall, was just a very strong show. Part of what makes it really funny and engaging is there are a couple moments during, I think it was like 2, maybe 3 sketches where he starts to break a little bit and it just kind of ripples a little bit around the crowd. There's definitely, like, toward the end of the episode, there is a hilarious sketch pertaining to, well, something near to my heart, well done meat. But nonetheless, it results in, like, no one survives the sketch. Everyone breaks in some way, shape, or form, and the crowd just loves it. And he is hysterical. They're all just really funny. And so it was a really just uncharacteristically solid episode of Saturday Night Live with him hosting. And so I would just highly recommend it. Do check it out. It's probably on the Peacock for past viewing. And check it out. The Mandalorian, who knew, would bring the chuckles.
Well, I knew. Actually, I didn't know. Not a clue.
And what is yours, sir?
Mine is something that I started watching the other night with my wife, and it's a documentary, which was the remarkable thing, because my wife is not as much of it. She's not a documentary fanatic like I am, although I've managed to, like, I kind of start watching something and then she'll get sucked in a little bit. This is probably one of those cases. This is a Bill Russell Legend on Netflix. It's a 2-part documentary. I've only watched the first part so far. What I've seen is absolutely excellent. The way that they bring in archival footage of Russell, of old interviews with folks who have, of course, passed on, but then also bring in present day interviews with some of his remaining teammates, some of his teammates who are still with us, and also even Steph Curry, some current players as well. Just talking about Russell and talking about the people that he played against, like Wilt Chamberlain, guys like that, and just, it's nice to hear from present day players who understand that history and understand who these people were, these players were, and just how good they were.
Yeah.
And, like, acknowledging, like, this guy was unreal, things like that.
Yeah.
And also getting into, just what he had to face and what he went through in terms of his playing career, his life growing up, all of that, and what his real history was, because I thought I knew quite a bit about Bill Russell, just from, reading different articles and things like that. But oh my gosh, this just took it to a whole new level. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading some of his books and things like that. And just a fantastic overview of quite possibly the greatest winner in professional sports history.
Yeah.
More rings than fingers, and just a phenomenal, determined, focused athlete.
Yeah.
And I think it's great the way that they kind of start off when they talk about Bill Russell, like, he could control a game and win a game without scoring a point. And you almost like, who can do that? And then one of his finals games where he had 30 points, 20 rebounds, or something. It was even more than that. I don't know. It might have been crazier than that. But I mean, it's just some of the stuff that you just realize is just what this man accomplished and how he elevated his teammates, and also kind of just seeing what that team meant to each other, but also knowing, like, even as much of part of the team he was, he still kind of felt like he couldn't really talk to his teammates,
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating watch. I highly recommend it. I can't wait to see the second part.
Nice. I'll have to check that out. That sounds really good.
Indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It is now time for us to pack up. It feels really weird to be doing this outro after only recording for a few minutes here, it feels like. So just bear with
it's
me.
Under
but
2 hours. It feels wrong.
I know. I feel like I haven't even warmed up. I don't know what to do with myself. But thank you so much for tuning in, for downloading. We so appreciate it. If you have not yet subscribed, as always, what the hell's wrong with you? Go to freerangeidiocy.com. You can find all of our episodes there. You can download them individually, or you can just subscribe, and you can subscribe right there through the Podbean app. You can also find us on podcast purveyors of all kinds all around the world. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, whatever the Amazon Alexa thing is. We're on Google Podcasts, all kinds of places. Search for Free Range Idiocy, you'll find us. We're also on the social medias. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on the YouTubes. We used to be on Twitter, but F Twitter and the Mollusk. You can find us by email. By email, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, electronic mail. This is the wave of the future. Actually, a really great bit from the last night when we went out to dinner. My wife was saying how she had just messaged our daughter and she mistakenly said email instead of text. And everyone at the table simultaneously said, email? And I was like, why don't you send her a postcard? I mean, you're sending that to a teenager. You might as well send airmail. They don't answer email like that. That doesn't happen. Anyways, but you can email us, tim@freerangeidiocy.com with any questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas for shows, and he will get back to you post-haste, if not sooner. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for me to shut my yapper and turn this show over to the least idiotic of the two idiots who is on this show. Now, granted, that is a low bar to clear when you're talking about me. However, this man clears it with room to spare, even after a meal like he had the other night. But not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history. The first, of course, being, what is hip? The second being, the hell did we learn this show, sir?
We learned the following, my friend.
Good.
We learned that even if we have to break an episode up across 2 weeks to record, we will somehow pull it off.
And probably do it shabbily, but yes, we pull it off.
I don't know about that. I think it'll be, once again, a fine production by Uncle Todd. We have also learned that Uncle Todd and the man they call Tim men about the town, having some dinners, enjoying some of the finer things, and being surprised by the bill at the end. So
just reducing the population of cows on this planet little by little, doing our part. Yeah, got to watch out, man. Those cows will take over.
Absolutely.
We are doing our part to manage the herd.
Absolutely. And we've also learned, coming right out of the mouth from Jimmy Dice, this is the year of the blue. Looking forward to Thrawn.
I forgot that. Yeah, that's right.
Looking forward to Thrawn. Live action debut. Most likely Ahsoka. So stay tuned. Enjoy The Mandalorian, but buckle up for Ahsoka because we're going to get the man in the flesh. Finally.
Yeah, sure.
Seen, heard,
smelt.
All the good stuff.
Can't say any more than that because it usually goes downhill real quick from there.
Well, with all that being said, we again thank you for your listenership, and we'll now depart. So as we like to close things out...
Wait. And a big thank you to Jimmy Dice, who was kind enough to come on the show and
thank you.
to lend his expertise to us humble idiots and to educate us.
Yes.
On the ways of Thrawn and Star Wars.
Indeed. Thank you for the time, sir, and the fine conversation over a worthy topic that is Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Sure.
All right, and now to close out, as we like to end things, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another, and, well, both of us have been out for extravagant meals this weekend, so please, hit the lights on the way out.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Do it.
Hi! Want to hand me the mic? Thanks a lot. Hi, this is car, what number are we? 55. Car 55. We're in a truck.
You give me my cheese whiz, boy?
Damn!
Take me out, coach.
Oh, we ain't gonna talk about this.
Take me out. It's my turn. You told me it was my turn.
You can talk all that you want to, yell and scream. You lost.
It is my turn.
You lost the game.
It's my turn.
Take as long as you want. You're still lost.
Where's my snack pack?
You got a banana. You don't need no snack pack.
You know I like snack pack. Why can't you just give me a snack pack?
I thought I was your snack pack.
What are you talking about?
Nothing.
Bill, you're gonna miss the bus.
Yeah, you better get your beautiful bubs up that driveway.
What a weirdo.
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
I can't even tell you how funny it is to me every week that you end the show by saying, be healthy, after you eat like a wheelbarrow full of meat.
Telling you, man, my cholesterol is never better.
Okay, so it isn't mayo, but it's probably ranch dressing. Maybe chunky blue cheese. You know? I guess what I'm trying to say is, just dial it back a little bit.
All right.
Be somewhat healthy.
Maybe I'll eat, instead of 32 ounces, we'll drop it down to like 16 ounce, something or other. I don't know. We'll see.
Wow, that's dry. I don't know. You might get
maybe an 8-ounce fillet or something like that.
You might get withdrawal with that.
Can I have another?
be working the dinner table like blackjack. Hit me. Hit me again.
Sir, we don't do that.
And by the way, would you please put your pants on again?
Now get the hell out of here!